This is the Unscripted Podcast.
Bob, you're multiplying here. It's like
Yeah,
you
man.
lost so much weight, you divided in two or something.
Been hitting the gym, doing some jujitsu. It's crazy.
So Bob's not here today, obviously. We had to. Bob has got such a vital role on the podcast. We had to replace him with two people.
Right. And we have a special guest. So, you've heard the name Taylor Cooper, dropped a couple times on the podcast. Well, here he is. This is the man right here.
Taylor Cooper.
Hello.
Taylor, are you nervous?
A little bit.
What makes you nervous?
Never done this before.
We really didn't give him an option. We just told him,
Yeah,
hey, Taylor, you're on the podcast today.
Hey, guess what, Taylor? Everybody's always done it the first time too. So don't feel bad.
Tyler at the men's retreat, he was like, "Man, we heard your name a lot up there. Like, I didn't put your name in there. You got to pay me next time or something. He's me some money." He's like, "We've heard your name. Like, you've been a new Christian for 3 months, for 5 months now."
That's so funny. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, me dying.
Yeah. Well, so what are we going to talk about today, guys?
Well, I think it would be, really cool if we could talk about. I mean, we have a fairly new Christian.
What did you say?
I've been 3 months old for 5 months now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Been a Christian for 3 months for the last 5 months.
Yeah. But Taylor, I mean, he's just been so awesome of, really getting after it. And you can kind of really, talk about Taylor just throughout this podcast. What had to change in your life? What transformations you've had to make in not only your spiritual life, but the way you work and how you view every decision as a spiritual decision. Taylor, he gave our characteristic kickoff, which every first of the month we'll have a brand new characteristic, and we get two guys to do a lesson. And man, Taylor, you did just such a great job on that. And one of the things you were talking about were how you view every decision as a spiritual decision.
Yeah, I mean,
Can we back up on this a minute? Go ahead. I like the thing that you want to talk about, but I would, and I want to talk about that. But let's talk about how we got there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what I mean by that is, let's go back. So I know and I hope that there are a lot of people listen. I wish there were untold millions, right?
Well, you go to PTP and everybody, up there is listening.
Yeah. So probably 10 years ago, I don't know how long ago it's been a while back. I started doing these lessons at PTP about like just, your average guy being a soul winner. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the lessons up until that point were kind of just, here's our method, you try it and see if it works for you, right?
Right.
And to some degree, we're still doing those things in the church. Here's our method, you try it, see if it works for you. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a wrong thing, because, the challenge with me has always been that because I'm fat, that one size does not fit all, And so like you buy if I buy a 3X shirt, it's not necessarily because I'm so fat, it's because I need the length too, right?
Right.
And so or the hats that clasp together in the back. I always use it as an analogy, because like if I use the last two buttons, they squeeze my head so hard it makes my head hurt. But if I use the one where it fits, then it's just a hinge, right? So there is no one size fits all in any situation. Well, so years ago we started doing these classes about like just, we really can make a difference. We really can make a difference. And what I've noticed is that like this year at PTP, I went to those guys, at the GBN, they got the Authentic Christian podcast. That was
Aaron
called
Gallagher.
Aaron Gallagher and those guys. And I went to a couple of Aaron's sessions, and I was listening to him. And what was amazing to me is that I was so happy, because the first ones that I started doing, there was literally like it was a sparse crowd. There wasn't a lot of people doing them.
When did you start? What was that, like 2012, 2013?
Something like that. 2012, 2015, I don't know. Aiden, Aiden's 14, something like that. 10 years ago, give or take. I don't know.
Right.
And the Jessica could tell you, but there wasn't a lot of people there, and nobody knows me, so it's not like they're going to see Chris Donovan on the thing and be like, I got to go listen to this guy, right?
Yeah. I gotta listen to this hillbilly.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but over the years, I've watched it evolve into the guys that are teaching those lessons like that are some of the most well attended lessons. And I listen to them. I go to them because I want to support them and tell them, like, you're doing the right thing. Keep doing that thing. Keep telling people about it. Keep telling people that you can do it. Keep telling people you can make a difference. And so what has been an amazing thing is, like, I was at one of Aaron's sessions this year, and all the things he was talking about, we've said it 1,000 times here. And it was comforting to me in the fact that, like, there's not this new thing.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's not this.
Here's this new thing we're doing.
Yeah,
the new trend. Like, this is it.
That wasn't it. It was just the same things we're saying. Like, listen, your life is going to be the difference. Your focus is going to be the difference. And so, and it was standing room only. And it's just an amazing thing. And so, what's a blessing for us here in our congregation is that now, we're several years into this kind of transformation that the congregation's going through. And we're at a point to where, Taylor, help me, didn't you ask Ben, like, why is Chris going to talk about people, to tell them about Jesus or something like that? Didn't you, or did somebody ask you that question?
Yeah, it was. You remember when you were asking, like, hey, what's Chris doing up in Tennessee?
PCP thing?
Yeah.
I never heard of it before.
Pull your mic up close to you.
Got it. Yeah, because I never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah, and so, the reason why that I love going is because I get a chance to help the church see that we really can be effective. And so you get to tell the stories about how the church is transforming here. And the blessing is for guys like you, Taylor, is that you will never know it any other way. This is, you come into Christianity, and this is the only way that you know now. And so we've for years have been trying to turn the corner, and I really see it happening. And I'm not saying that it's not happening. I really see this transformation in the church, but we're really trying to change the culture as a whole. And for a long, long time, and it's probably because if you reach back 50, 60 years, when America was a very much a Bible-believing country, that then the tenets of Christianity could be discussed, right? Like, what are the right things that we should believe and understand as Christians? Whereas nowadays, we'll still need to have those discussions and those conversations, but now it's going to be about, what does my life look like as a Christian? And that was really the Lord's plan all along, is that we would be transformed, we would become this different person, and then the world, we would then validate to Christianity why it's true and it's real and it really does change your life. It really can make you better, and you really can do this thing for all those people around us. And so tell us, Taylor, I reckon Ben, go back to Ben's question, is that, now you're a part of the church and a part of our congregation where, you're thriving and you're growing and you're such an inspiration to us and so many people. Tell us what your view was, from the first time you came, right? Like, how you came, the first time you came until where you're at now. Talk to us.
Okay. So my first Sunday with Ambi up here.
Don't say
Yes, sir.
No, I'm just playing. I just want to make it awkward.
Good job. My first Sunday here with Ambi, the first thing that I had to say was, I was like, all these people are so nice and welcoming. It reminds me of, like, the old church that I went to before.
Right.
But sadly, then I didn't really understand what all they were saying there. So
Sure.
I was just probably 12, 14. But
Right.
everyone was super nice.
And what made you want to go with Ambi?
We actually were talking about it for probably over the span of 4 months. Like, hey, I haven't found any churches up here ever. I've been thinking about going, and then sooner or later she was like, well, there's this one that I go to trunk or treat for, and they probably think I just want the candy. So let me just show up. I was like, that sounds awesome. So she went, she said she liked it, and she like, same thing. She like, people are very welcoming, and she just feels really good going there. So I was like, well, okay, I'll try it. And then we kind of joked about it for a while. We're like, yeah, these people are a little too nice. It might be a cult.
Right. We are. We just hadn't told you all the hidden stuff yet.
Right. And then, so when I started coming, and she was like, yeah, they I've been coming longer than you have. They like you more. They got a plan for you. I was like, oh, man.
Do you want to understand what was going on there? Let me see if I can explain to you what was going on there. When Ambi starts coming, she just happened to sit near me, and I had forgotten, so I meet so many people at the trunk or treat. You know what I mean? Like, there's just gobs of people that come through here, and I try to focus. Bob taught me this good lesson. That when you're with people, you pour in them, but when you're without them, you pour out, because inevitably you'll fill your bucket up with so many problems. So when I'm with people, I try to make them feel special, and I try to help them, and I'm all in when I'm with you. But I can't always remember all the details when I leave, because I'm going to deal with somebody else next, right? So, I meet a lot of people at these trunk or treats, and I try to pour into them and love on them. So Ambi comes, and I talked to her. So I thought the first time because she came a week or two without you, right? And then, just, hey, how are you? Howdy doodies. Well, inevitably, when I get done preaching, I get pulled in 1,000 directions. Some Sundays I don't even get to talk to you, yep. And it's not that I don't want to talk to people. It's just that somebody's got something they need to talk to me about. And so I just kind of get tugged off, which it is what it is.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I appreciate it. This is not a complaint. It's just the reason,
right.
And so I talked to Ambi a couple Sundays. Well, when y'all came, she's a black girl, but, I saw y'all. I thought, okay, well, she's got a boy. You can tell he's not. You can pretty much tell he's not biracial. You can figure that his daddy was black too. But you're with her, and I'm like, are they together? So I thought that maybe y'all two were together.
Yeah, just trying to put two and two together.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math here. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it ain't the algebra's not working out. And so when I approached y'all, and then she was like, oh no, my I work with Taylor. Him and my husband work together. And so I was like, okay. In my mind, my original sights were on Ambi, right? Because she'd been coming here longer. This is your first Sunday or two, right? So Ambi comes, and I'm thinking, like, I want the whole family. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I want mama and daddy. And it's always, a unique challenge, when you study it alone, if for whatever reason, if you have to study alone with a lady, and I don't mean like personally by myself, but when there's a lady that's married and her husband can't, like, I'm just talking about if my wife is studying with her, because you're teaching her things that may make her a spiritual widow. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. She may be having to go with this alone. Well, I would rather not have to teach her than reteach her husband, than, replow ground. But when I find out you're single, and it's like, okay, so that makes it a lot easier then, right? So it was never that, like, we set our sights on Taylor. It was just that Taylor was the lower hanging fruit at that moment.
Mm-hmm. That's why he was the easy one to get.
Yeah. He was the easier one. And
Taylor, he just won't say no to you either.
I know it. Hey, can you pay my house payment?
We're gonna have to talk about that.
So back to your story then. So finish your story.
Hey,
so you come, everybody's nice, howdy doody.
And then I guess the main thing that kept me staying was you asking me to do studies, because I never did that before growing up, ever. And it changed.
But it just happened to be me.
It just happened to be, yeah.
It would have been,
if it would have been a Bob or anybody,
or Ben or Brian or any 50 other members. Yeah.
Someone sat down and showed me the simplicity of it and how to understand the Bible. Mm-hmm. That's what really changed it. Because my whole life, like I said, I've grown up in church, but I see everybody. It was always a suggestion. It wasn't really. That wasn't just the way to live. It was, oh yeah, well, and then. As a kid, it makes sense to try to justify when you do things wrong.
Yeah, it still does at 40. I'm just going to tell you.
True, but then I see much older people than I am do the same thing, which But when it comes to the Bible, it's like that's just what it is. You can't justify yourself, or you're just sinning.
Yeah.
You just coming up with excuses to sin.
Yeah. What an awesome thing. And you know, and you know, so there's a big lesson that I kind of want everybody to understand is that, like, you know, it wasn't like it just happened to be me. You know, it could have just as easily been Ben or 50 other people in our congregation. You just happened to be geographically closer to me at that moment.
You were the one that just invited me to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there, you know, Taylor, surprisingly, you know, there are a lot of people out there that, you know, struggle with, you know, asking people to study with them, right? So you're kind of on the other side of this, right? And so when Chris asked you to study, what was going through your mind? Were you nervous about it, or kind of questioned it, or you just like, okay, let's do this?
My mind was made up immediately. I was like, I think this is what I need to do. Because, like, if I'm gonna do something, I wanna be good at it. So
it would have been a lot harder for you to say yes if you hadn't have been exposed to our congregation, though. Really, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if I'd have just hit you at walk-ons where you work at, you know, and just been like, hey, would you like to study the Bible with me? That would have been a little bit harder, you know, sale, don't you think?
a little bit. I think I probably still would have came because I've had customers there when I was servers invite me to do all kinds of things, and I mean, unless it was too crazy, I'd say no. But like if they wanted to, when I used to go out or something, I mean, I was still on the fence about that too, even though that's something I normally did because I didn't know them.
Right. So how has your like habits, your lifestyle, how has those changed since you became a Christian?
A whole lot.
3 months ago, 5 months.
A whole lot. I'm a lot. I mean, first thing I did.
Listen, let me tell you, you don't have to dig up no bones here.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no need to, you know, tell any skeletons in your closet. And I don't mean that. So, you know, just from a spiritual perspective, because, you know, I don't like to tell the stories of,
That's right.
you know, just because it'll sometimes we have this tendency to think that, well, I need to sow my wild oats or something like that. I'm just going to tell you, a lot of people sow their wild oats that never quit sowing and they never get out of the weeds when they start. So
You can't have your hands to the plow and look back.
yeah. So tell me, you know, what's changed in your thinking and your thoughts?
Well, one of the first ones, I was like, well, I don't want to even touch alcohol or anything. Like that was really easy for me. Luckily.
Why was that?
I guess because I didn't start until I was surrounded by people that did it when I was 21. That's when I actually started drinking. So a little over a year ago, almost 2 now. And let's see, my dad growing up, he was like, I'm just too cool to do it. So I never wanted to smoke or drink because my dad never did it. So that made it really, really easy for me, even though my mom did. But, I mean, I could tell a difference in them too. Then the way I just talk to people in general, like especially women, like now my whole intentions have changed, and now I gotta set a standard so they know what to expect when I talk to them. They're not guessing.
What do you mean by that?
Like I
understand, but maybe the people listening don't understand.
So just I guess let me try to phrase this the right way. So when you're out there okay. So in the I'll use this.
Awkward pause.
Old Taylor would have been more maybe trying to get with the girls. So now I know exactly. So I knew what to say. So now I got to stray from that as much as possible.
Yeah.
I got to stray, not even from eye contact or body language, anything. So, but I also don't want to hold back and not tell them, hey, these are great things that you can do and learn and you can live better.
Yeah.
So the way I keep everything about church when I talk to them.
He's flirting for Jesus.
So just think about something. You know, there's this right, flirting for Jesus. Every tactic that you would employ to commit something and do something sinful is the same tactic that you would commit and employ to teach somebody the gospel now. So you think about this, like Luke 19:10, the Son of Man came to seek and save that which is lost, right? 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, your adversary, the devil, walketh about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Same word, right? So Jesus came to seek and save Satan is doing the same thing. He's seeking. So any tactic, that you would employ, you're just using it now. Your motives are different, is what you're saying, right?
Now my motive is to save them instead of be with them.
Yeah.
And they definitely see it, because it's like, instead of me, I'm not just saying what they want to hear anymore. I'm saying what they need to hear.
Good way to put that.
And so I was last Wednesday after Bible study, me and Taylor, we went to walk-ons where Taylor works, and
after Bible your class that you teach.
Yeah. And it's just so amazing. Like, when we go in there, I'm able to have conversations with some of his coworkers, and they know where the church is at. Taylor, they're like, Taylor, he's always inviting me to come up there. Come to the student center, eat pancakes. They knew who I was, even though I never met them. And so, Taylor, when a couple weeks after you became a Christian, what were your coworkers asking you?
Well, I had my manager pull me to the side, and he was like, "Well, Taylor, I gotta talk to you. I've been hearing things around work." I was like, "Okay, this is kind of weird."
Right. You're starting this off on a bad way.
And
Awkward.
And he's a really great guy. He used to be a dishwasher, moved up to a manager, and he used to have problems with the law and stuff. And now he actually graduates drug court Monday, and we're gonna celebrate that with him.
What's drug court?
Like so he doesn't have to be involved with his PO anymore or anything. So
he's free.
He's free. He doesn't even touch alcohol pads.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah. Why do you think he does that for?
Because he cares about his family.
Man, just think he's been burned, right?
He's an awesome guy, and but so that's why I was so happy he kind of talked to me. That shows he actually cares about me to talk to me about that. He's like, "Well, if you're having any problems, some of the guys have been saying you've been taking pills, and if you're on anything, I've been there before, and you don't want to do that." And I was like happy and confused. I was like, "Thank you so much for telling me that," but trust me, I'm not on anything at all. Like, I'm just happy to come to work. Like, I've been going to church. Like, I actually have someone to fill my cup now, because as a manager, your role is basically to fill others' cups.
Right.
And it's hard when you're empty.
Yeah, amen, dude.
It's really
amen.
hard.
So think about the blessing of the community of the church, and that you got all these people that are like yours and Ben's age, that really want to get after, like they're in this podcast. I've already got one guy call me and ask me where he can get a certain kind of Bible from that's your age in the church. He's looking for a certain type of Bible, and you guys are single, and you're in your early 20s, and you got all this stuff ahead of you, and there's a blessing that if you guys build these strong relationships now, you'll be able to, when you're my age, you'll be sitting there having the conversations with the guys that are in your seat literally right now, and helping them through their challenges that they're going through in life. And isn't that a blessing in the church?
Yeah, absolutely.
That you got these things. I mean, this is a biblical model that you're talking about here. This Titus chapter 2. The older women teach the younger women, older men teach the younger men. I mean, why? You think about, like, you guys in your 20s have a tremendous ability to support each other, right? Support each other, but you are lacking something that will just take time to get, and that's just life experience. So right now, the most important things you can do for each other is help each other, encourage each other, like, keep going, Ben, keep going, Taylor, keep swinging, Shaw, whoever, just keep naming names in the church, keep swinging for the fences. And then, when you get to be 40 and you've had your kids, and your kids are turning into teenagers, and you're going through all these things, and you'll be able to look back and you'll be able to help those guys, like, hey, let me help you with some life decisions that you're getting ready to make. Let me help you with some challenges that's going to be in front of you. And what a blessing it is in the church like that. And I'm so thankful for the guys that I can go to now, that I'm like, listen, dude, I got teenagers, I'm struggling. And so, I've literally went to people in the church here and, like, I've got teenage boys, and I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. And So I've went to older men to seek advice. I've went to the guys that are my age and say, hey, take my kids to lunch. Take my boy, take them to lunch and just talk with them, help them understand, that the challenges you're getting ready to have in your life as a teenager. And what a way that kind of shapes you and changes you, that you have this rolling, but I want to read a Bible. I want to show you something that,
Let's pause right there. Let's keep that thought, and we'll come back after the break.
all right.
Life in general is about decisions. Every decision that you make has consequences, and you're tethered to every single one of them. Jesus gives us this awesome opportunity that you don't have to make all the decisions in your life all on your own. You see, he invites you to come to him, to learn from him. Jesus gives us this perfect example, and he tells us in Matthew chapter 11, he says, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm meek and gentle in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. We have so much to learn from Christ, and he gives us this example of saying, if you really want to learn from me, take my yoke. You see, yokes were used back in Bible times to put two animals together to pull a load or to pull a cart or to plow ground. And you would put an ox together, or you would put two mules together, and they would pull the load together. And that's what Christ offers for us, is he's offering to pull the load for us. Christ invites us to come to him, and we're to be his followers, disciples, learners, people who have yoked in with him. And he builds a community around us called the church. The church is to be made up of people who God have looked at their hearts. You see, the world wants to paint a picture of everything that would divide us. The church has painted a picture of the things that unite us. That Christ, he builds this community that when we've yoked in with other people, they may be different from us, but we can learn from each other. What a beautiful thing that it is when we can have difficult conversations. There's no conversation that the church can't have. And that's what Christ wants from us, is he wants community that's strong, that's yoked in together, that learns from each other. And most importantly, that learns from Jesus. And he invites us to come, take, learn, and find.
All right. And we're back.
So, there's this, there's a really interesting thing that happens. You think about the church in its infancy. In Acts 2, you see the beginning of the church. You see all these people that, like me, I'll give you an example. When I became a Christian in Virginia, I was 19. I was 19 and I was in college. And I suppose that intellectually, I knew there had to be other Christians in the world.
Right.
There had to be other people that had read and understand these things. But emotionally, I had no connection to them. You understand what I'm saying? The only ones that I knew were the ones that I knew,
Just in the mountains of Virginia.
Yeah, and so I remember thinking, I have got to, I just remember thinking, it's not that I've been duped necessarily, but, I just didn't know. It's not like I felt like, what's the word? Like I had been fooled by somebody, and
you just didn't know any better.
I just didn't know any better. And so I thought, my friends don't either, so I'm going to tell everybody that I can. So I'm telling all my friends, and I'm going as far as telling their mamas and daddies, I'm just not telling their friends, but I'm going to keep my little Bible.
And it's because you got good news. It's kind of like, when you got fiber Wi-Fi, you're telling me about it. And you're like, dude, this thing is awesome.
Yeah. I've never had Wi-Fi. I've never had fiber. Like, the girl calls me and she's like, or I call her and I'm like, I've been checking the availability and it says it's ready. She says, no, it's not ready. Actually, it is ready. And I was like, I want the fastest one you got. She's like, well, Well, let me explain, ma'am. Let me just tell you, I want the fastest one that you have. But, ma'am, this conversation will go, whatever the box you got to check.
That's what I want.
That's the one I want. And then we'll just cut it off there. Okay, click. So I got the fastest internet you can have now, right? I mean, it's blazing fast. And so I've never had internet, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just all of a sudden, you know, I've jumped into the 2000s, right? And so when I became a Christian, I remember thinking, I've got to tell everybody, right? They just don't know. And so, you know, then it's not long and you're just like, you realize that it's not because they didn't know, it's because a lot of them just didn't care to know. And that's a harsh reality to face, you know, that some people they just don't care, that they're happy with where they're at in the world, whether they're happy or not. You know, a lot of people, most people, if you ask them, I really believe, like, are you happy where you're at right now? Most people, if they're honest, would say, I'd like to get to the next level. You know, whatever that means to them in their mind, you know, spiritually, you know, whatever.
I just need this one more thing.
Yeah, this one more, I just need to be a better husband, a better wife, a better mama, a better daddy, a better student, a better employee, a better employer, whatever. I just, you know, that's why we read all these things. That's why social media is such a popular thing, because we think we can get something out of it. You know, I mean, all these quotable quotes and stuff like that from all these famous authors, you know, and that you see shared over and over again. But I realized that, you know, it wasn't. Now, granted, I mean, I couldn't have hardly told you anything, hardly, you know, that the Bible had to tell me, but I could tell you how to get saved. You know, I could tell you how to get saved, and you know, I'm telling them these things with the stink of the world on me, trying my best to scrub it off, you know, but, you know, what you get to see is that, you know, I was your guys' age then, you know, and I didn't necessarily have the support group that you guys have. You know, I didn't have a lot of people, you know, your guys' age. And so I only had older Christians that I could look up to and to model myself after. Well, you know, what happened was, over time, I suppose, several years, you kind of look around and you think, like, well, nobody else is really telling everybody about Jesus. And you don't really have this conversation with yourself, but you know, what is the norm becomes the norm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What is the norm becomes the norm. And so,
yeah, if everybody else isn't doing it, well, then it really isn't that important. So, you know, what's the big deal? Yeah,
and so it's and on top of that, like, you think about it, like, I've told innumerable amount of people about Jesus, right? And it's not like I've converted 1,000 people at this point, you know? So you're realizing, like, okay, well, you know, I got me a job now. Now I'm married. You know, I've got life issues, life challenges, you know, and so, you know, I'm always going to church. And
everybody's patting you on the back too.
Yeah.
Good job, Chris.
Yep.
Good job.
Yep. I mean, I'll do my little devotionals, or I'll preach sometimes if I need to. And you know, but what you realize is that there's a point where you look around, you're like, no, this is not right. You know, this is not the right thing to do. And so you realize then that you have a role to play and help move the church forward. And so, like, I want to help you guys with something. And, you know, there's a really interesting thing that happens in Acts chapter 6. And so in Acts chapter 6, we have this challenge that happens with, so Acts 2, the church is new, it's growing, you know, it has really no idea what it's doing. You know, I mean, Acts 2 and verse, you know, those first 3 or 4 or 5 verses after 41, after the first 3,000 souls are baptized, you know, these people continued steadfastly in apostles' doctrine and prayers and breaking bread and from house to house. You know, all these things are kind of painting the picture of, well, the reason why they were doing those things is because we have to realize that Christianity to them and everybody was literally brand new. I mean, it's literally, it's you know, it's like revision 1, you know what I mean? Or Rev 0, you know? So they're having to learn everything. So you're seeing this outpouring where it's like people are selling their stuff. Well, one of the reasons why they're selling stuff is, like, you know, Taylor's from this part of the world and Ben's from this part of the world and I'm from this part of the world. Well, I only came to stay a couple weeks, but now all of a sudden, you know, and I only bring enough food and money and things like that to stay a couple weeks, but now we're part of this huge and vital component that the world needs, the church. So everybody that's left that stays there, right? They need some. They got to live, right? So that's why you see these guys selling their property, and it's not because like the church was this communist movement, right? It's the Bible says that they sold everything, having all things in common, sold their possessions. It's just the same idea that my house tonight, you're coming to eat with me, right? And with a friend that we're going to teach the gospel to, right? And so or my shop, right? My shop, it's not like all the tools in my shop are everybody's tools, right? But they're always there. We'll always use them for their benefit, right? So we have that in common.
And you have, spiritual intentions with the shop.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's not that so like you come to work on something, you come to fix something, you come to make something, it's going to be a spiritual environment, but it's something that's at your disposal, right? But you just can't roll my toolbox out and be like, all right, Chris, appreciate it. I'll take your $100,000 worth of tools. That don't happen.
Moving into my garage.
Yeah, that doesn't happen that way. But the church in its infancy is this group of people that have got to reach the next level, right? They've got to reach the next level.
It's the ground floor.
It's the ground floor, right? They got to grow. They got to grow. They got to grow. Well, what is an awesome thing is that the norm becomes the norm, right? So by the time we get to Acts 6, you're seeing this challenge. Like let's pick up and read this. Now in the days when the number of disciples was multiplying, there arose a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists because their widows were neglected in the daily distribution. So the whole church at this point is still Jewish Christians, but the Hellenists were Jews who had kind of adopted part of the Greek culture. They were Greek-speaking Jews. They would have been Jews that would look like Greek people, right? And so, you see this neglecting, and it may even in your mind paint something malicious, that's happening. But I don't believe it's malicious. What I think happens is that we tend to take care of our own. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
There's just a tendency for us to take care of our own.
And there are going to be things that fall through the cracks.
There's going to be things that fall through the cracks. And so, and I don't doubt that there were a good number of these people, but I doubt that they made up the majority, right? So look what happens. Verse number 2, then the 12 summoned the multitude of disciples and said, it is not desirable that we should leave the work of the Lord and serve tables. Now, just with your finger there, turn back 2 chapters. Chapter 4 and verse 36. Well, let's see here. Verse 34. Let's pick up verse 34. Nor was there anyone among them who lacked, for all who were possessors of land or houses sold them, brought the proceeds of the things that were sold, laid them at the apostles' feet. They distributed to each. Who is they? The apostles. They distributed to each one as anyone had need. Joseph, who is also surnamed Barnabas by the apostles, which is translated son of encouragement, a Levite of the country of Cyprus, having land, sold it, brought the money, and laid it at the apostles' feet. So what? Whose feet did they lay it at?
The apostles.
And what did the apostles do?
Distributed out.
The apostles distributed it out. The apostles took care of it. The apostles doled out, what they saw as the necessity, right? Now just think about that. In Acts 4, the apostles are the distributors, right?
Right.
In Acts 6, we got the same issue here, right? So that's the reason why you're seeing the byproduct or the resultant of what the need was there in Acts 4. There's a need to take care of people. All right, well, I'm going to sell my stuff. I'm going to give the money. You apostles, y'all take care of this, right? They walk away. Now, here's an interesting thing. The church is growing. So watch what happens in Acts 6. Then the 12 summoned the multitude. We're going to read this verse again now. And said, it is not desirable that we should leave the word of the Lord and serve tables. What did they say they're not going to do now?
Serve tables.
They're not going to distribute anymore. Just think about that. Is that wrong for them to say that?
No.
So in Acts 4, the church was at a point where they needed to do that job, right? In Acts 6, they're not there anymore, right? They're
growing.
They're growing, right?
Growing.
Their responsibilities are evolving, right? So verse number 3, therefore, brethren, seek out from among you 7 men. What kind of men?
7 men of good reputation.
Good reputation, full of the Holy Spirit, and what?
Wisdom.
Whom we may appoint over this business. So what has he said to do now?
Find some people that can take care of this work.
Yeah, find some people that can do this job. I know that you came to us because originally we were here. Mm-hmm. Now we're here, right? You need somebody to be in this spot now. Mm-hmm. You need somebody to be here because we're here right now. And if we leave this spot vacated, this is a spot that was of necessity. This spot that we're in now is a necessitative spot. Mm-hmm. If we leave this spot, who's going to do it? So guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to find somebody that fits this spot now. We can't go back there. Mm-hmm. We can't serve. We can't keep our hand in both sides of the cookie jar. We've got this we got to do. You've got this. It's still important. Mm-hmm. This was a necessity. As a matter of fact, this first role was one of the greatest validations of the church as a community of people that really cared for each other and really wanted to move forward. Mm-hmm. Every time you see these great benevolent acts, these great miracles, these things, and it'll be words like, "And the word of the Lord grew mightily." Mm-hmm. These things, and it's because there's this outpouring, this showing of the way that they've been transformed in their lives. Now I'll transform people with my life. And so right. Acts 6, they say, okay, there's a challenge. We have had this challenge from the beginning, but now there's been a stopgap, right? Mm-hmm. So here you go. You guys occupy this spot. Choose among you 7 men, full of wisdom, Holy Spirit, good reputation, that can take care of this. Now just think about this. They took the feeding of widows, and that must have been a pretty overwhelming amount to pick 7 people to take care of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, just think about like 7, like even yesterday we had the funeral for one of our former elders mm-hmm. here. I mean, served for 40 years. There was a ton of people here, mm-hmm. right? And the ladies took care of it afterwards, and it was, they may have fed 100 or so people, or maybe, I don't know, 100, whatever it was. I don't know how many.
A lot of people.
A lot of people. But, it took a lot of ladies to do that, right?
Right.
And so I don't know how many people it took to take care of this, but this was a daily thing, right? That's mm-hmm. not just a one-shot deal. This is a daily thing that was going to happen here. So look what happens. Verse 4, we'll give ourselves continually to prayer and the ministry of the word, and this saying pleased the whole multitude. So look who they choose. Now, these are Jews. You mm-hmm. got me? That are going to take care of Hellenist Jews, Greek Jews, right? So when you think about Jewish names, what do you think about? Saul, Solomon.
David.
Saul and Solomon are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Did you know Joshua and Jesus are literally the same word in the Hebrew?
I didn't.
Yeah, it's the same word. It's really this. It's just a little bit of a twist on the word.
Yeah, maybe I can learn some more Hebrew, by the time I get up to, your age and 40.
Well, you just learned all I know. So you got it.
I'll hang out with Glenn Shear,
you're
just a little
20
bit.
years ahead of me now. But all these names, like you think about what Jewish names sounded like, mm-hmm. right? And so we go through this process here, and they say, choose 7 men among you. So look who they choose. They chose Stephen, a man full of faith and the Holy Spirit, Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, Nicholas, a proselyte from Antioch. Mm-hmm. What kind of names does that sound like? Does that sound like a Jewish name or a Greek name?
Sounds like Greek names to me.
Why do you think they chose Greek name people for?
Because they could relate with them. They could, probably had some of the same customs, and there would be a level of understanding, rather than just a Jew who wasn't in the Greek culture.
So you think about this, like when I used to go study with the Hondurans back home, I'm just so thankful for those guys, mm-hmm. And it was a blessing to be able to study with them. Like they would they wouldn't study until like 9, 10 o'clock, because they didn't get done working until 8:30 or 7, 8 o'clock, 9, depending on the weather.
Yeah, and even that, when we were studying with Hosway, I would be at your house till like 11:30.
Yeah, and that's a very common thing, mm-hmm. right? And so, like, I'd get over at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and they're like brewing coffee, and I'm like, dude, I cannot drink coffee at 11 o'clock. Like, I got to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock and go to work.
Yeah, you have to take some melatonin.
Yeah, or what's the hooch? NyQuil.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm going to have to go to sleep, like, make mm-hmm. myself, like, and so culturally, that was just every time. Guess what they'd offer me? Like, I can't do this at the evening time. Well, every time. So I don't doubt that there were cultural things that came into play here, right? I don't think it was anything malicious. I don't think that that people were neglecting it. But what happens is that at 40, I forget the challenges you guys have at 20. I forget those things. I remember when I was your age, but I forget.
And likewise, we, me and Taylor at our age, we think we know trying to understand, the challenges you have, but we don't have the first clue.
And that's a blessing, right? And so at 40, I've got this place that I've got to occupy. This level that I'm at now with my kids, with my family dynamic, with where I'm at as a midlife, all these things that I got to deal with financially, everything like that. I got to deal with those things. So I'm blessed in the church to have these people that we can work together. We can work on these things. But we also need to remember that what you guys need at 20, you're going to have to occupy this spot one day. You understand that? When you leave your spot that you're in now, you can't go back. Does that make sense?
Right.
Perfect sense.
So you can't go back to that spot. The apostles, and it's because if you abandon this spot, right, this spot is empty, right?
Somebody's got to fill it.
That's exactly right. I'm at the point now to where, Taylor will still call me to go to lunch or something like that. But you don't call 60-year-old guys to do that, do you? No. And it's not because you don't think they have value, right? It's just that there's a 40-year disconnect there, right?
That's right.
But guess what I do? I call the 60-year-old guys to go to lunch with me because there's the same gap between them and I as you and I, right?
Sure. And you're looking up to them,
Absolutely.
And like this Sunday, you sat in on an elders meeting because you wanted to see how they do a budget.
Yeah,
is that something you desire? You want to fill that position one day.
That's right. I know that one day that I'll have to, we're going hair, tooth, and nail right now, and so you figure that maybe I got 20 good years left in me where I can really get after it. But there's a point where I'm going to, my body. I'm just going to start aging out. I don't ever want to not be evangelistic, but this getting up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning and going until 10, 11 o'clock, like those make for really long days, and you can't do that but so long, right? And I've got a family to raise. I've got boys. Eventually Lord willing, I'm going to be a grandpa. I mean, there's just going to be different life. There's going to be different life circumstances, right? And when I get there, I'll need to occupy that position. So Sunday, I sat in with our elders and just said, hey, when y'all are working on the budget, like I know that I receive my salary from this budget, but I'd like to just look at the process. Like anything, I just want to hear how you guys make these decisions and why you make them and how do you weigh one against another? Because I don't have any experience doing that. And so I need to know how to do those things. And so, of course, they're not going to be like, no, you can't do that, right? They're going to, of course, come on in and have those conversations. But it was good for me to do those things. And so, and I get to see like how to shepherd people, so like somebody comes along with scratches on their face, a sheep comes along with scratches on its face.
I thought you were talking about Tom.
What they will add.
If you want to listen to the story again of Tom, how he fell off the ladder, go check out our Bible class, Sunday morning Bible class.
It would have
been 9:18.
Yeah, 9:18 Bible class, but somebody shows a sheep shows up with scratches on his face. You get to learn how to shepherd that because it's not necessarily that you've got scratches on your face is the problem, but how did you get in the briars?
Right.
That's what shepherding does. It's not put the Band-Aid on the scratch, but how to keep them out of the briars. And so, like you guys, like Taylor, you come into the church as only knowing it this way, right? You got to maintain it, son. You've got to maintain it. When you get the guys, when you're my age or you're sitting here having this conversation with, you've got to go. Ben, having grown up with the church his whole life, he has saw this and trying to be part of a culture change, and it's really challenging getting it, Ben.
Absolutely.
And why do you think that is for?
Because it's so easy to be stuck in the same way. So you think about this when kind of like what you were saying. when everybody was patting you on the back and saying, good job. But you realize you looked around and you weren't spreading the gospel to anybody. It's very easy to be comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't have to challenge yourself.
Yeah, because 1 Timothy 4:3 says, "For the time will come, then they will not endure sound doctrine." Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you, like one of the core fundamentals of one of the core sound doctrines of Christianity is beat the bushes and shoot the rabbits that run out. I'm telling you, get after it. Mm-hmm. You get everybody that you can and bring them home to Jesus. That you're not going to get no more core doctrine than that. We can talk about a lot of things about the authorship. I mean, the governance of the church, the way the church worships, the way the church, a million things we can talk about.
The Great Commission is doctrine too.
The Great Commission is doctrine too, and so, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers. Now, I'm just going to tell you, Paul, we think about that as these guys that are false teachers, okay? But if we're not careful, we'll do the same thing in the church that people make us feel good about just sitting in the pews and singing Happy, Happy Jesus and go home on Sunday. Guys, if you're in your 20s now and you're listening, when you get to be your 40s, look towards your 60s and just think about, I've got to be the one that's going to keep banging the drum. I've got to do it, because the guys that are in their 20s, they're going to need it. They're going to need to come into the church. They're going to need to know. I read statistic this week that there are more people being converted now, percentage-wise, of the unaffiliated in the church than there are people, percentage-wise, that are the people that are leaving the church are the people that have grown up in religion and they've grown up and they've never seen it have any value in their life except for a system of rules, and they're leaving it in droves. Well, there's more people percentage-wise that are unaffiliated that are becoming Christians than a percentage-wise of people that are leaving. And you know what that shows us? Is that people still want the gospel. People still want to be better. People still want to be part of something that's greater than themselves. And Jesus gave us this thing with the church and the gospel plan of salvation.
Absolutely. And when it all works together, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. And so we just want to encourage you guys, Taylor, Ben, bang the drum, guys. Keep after it. Keep after it. But what would you tell the guys that are 20 years older than you? What are the things you want them to understand?
20 years older? Or?
Yeah, the 20 years older and the 40 years older. What are the things that they need to know?
I would say, listen, if you haven't talked to somebody about Jesus in the past, month, you really need to look at your priorities. And if you need help with that, hey, you can contact me or Chris, send us a message on Facebook, because this is something really important. I was having a conversation with a guy, probably about maybe 2 months ago. And he was telling me, he's like, man, I'm really just, I want this to be the change this time. I every time I go, go back home, go back to my home congregation, I always end up falling away. I always, but here's the thing, that the best way to prevent that is just to get after it. Because when you wake up in the morning, and this is what Taylor kind of talked about, a couple weeks ago, is when you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about winning souls for Jesus, it changes your whole life.
It changes the way you put your britches on.
It does. Not only do you think about, not only do you think about what do I need to wear, but who do I need to talk to today? Right. Who do I need to pray about this morning? Mm-hmm. Am I praying that God's going to send somebody into my life that I can really impact with the gospel? Mm-hmm. And whenever you start really having those spiritual intentions and understanding that every decision is a spiritual decision, man, it's just going to become your life.
So what would you tell the 40-year-olds, Ben? What do they need to do for the 20-year-olds?
What do they need to do for the 20-year-olds? If you know somebody right now who's in college, just graduated from college, or just in that 20-year-old range, I would say, take them out to lunch, take them hunting, do something with them. And not only will they get to peek into your life and to see your family and to see how a good Christian, family is, but also try to really disciple them. and talk and show them the value in it, because that's one thing we've really forgotten about is showing. We list these scriptures, we talk about these great stories, but we don't tell people why it's valuable. And so share the value. And Chris, you've been such a here this past year, working here at KW, you've been such a tremendous influence on my life.
Well, man, don't toot my horn. There's a lot of people that it's real easy when you love the people around you, and you guys are just real easy too. So, there's no need to toot my horn.
Well, I just wanted to let you know.
I appreciate it, man, and it means a lot to me, and I'll continue to grow, and I pray that the Lord will be patient with me.
And you'll let everybody else know too. Is there's nothing special about you. No. There's nothing special about me.
If they watch our podcast, they'll figure that out.
And anybody can do this, right?
Yeah, amen.
And anybody can do this, and it's just the way the Lord designed it to be.
Amen.
And so that's what I would probably tell somebody who's 40 is. Find somebody in your congregation that you can build a bond with, that you can disciple. And if you're a deacon, understand that you want to desire the role of an elder one day. And so you need to start training the future deacons of the church.
Yeah, because that position's going to be vacant one day.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, Chris.
This is the Unscripted Podcast.